So you're all from Engineers Hub, by the way, is it?
Yeah, I think we are live now. Madhu, give me confirmation if I'm clearly audible and visible.
Yes, you are clearly audible.
Okay, so thank you for your confirmation. So, hello everyone, and welcome back to our YouTube channel. We are here with another episode of this Weekend with Us series, in which we are going to discuss about these behavioral interviews. So, this time we are having our speaker Abhishek Kumar, who's currently working at Engineer Manager at Google. So, hello Abhishek. First of all, thank you so much for joining this session and sharing your experiences with our upcoming engineers. And when I came to know about your routine, uh, it's you are having so much tight schedule, but still you are managing your time to give such kind of content information to our engineers. They're very grateful to you. First of all, thank you so much for joining this session. And okay, so this was. Do you want to say something?
No, I mean, I'm just happy to be here. And yeah, I
Yeah,
understand we're into multiple scheduling conflicts due to my calendar,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it makes
That's why we are very grateful to have you on this platform. Okay, so like, would you like to tell about a little bit more about yourself to our audience?
sure. So, hey everyone, I'm Abhishek. I'm currently working as an engineering manager, and I've worked at multiple product companies, including AIG, Walmart, Flipkart, and most recently Google. I also was the founder of a startup based out of Bangalore, which I had co-founded and ran for 4 years. The reason why I'm excited to be here is because I've both cleared multiple rounds of interviews at product companies as well as taken multiples of hundreds of interviews, including both technical as well as behavioral. So I would definitely be happy to have any questions that you all would want to throw, and it would be good to know. I'm also hoping to learn a few things from this session. So overall, thanks.
Okay, okay, thank you. That's pretty cool. So, like, before starting the session, I would like to know a little bit more about your this role. That what is engineering manager? I'm hearing this first time, and what engineering manager at Google. So, would you please explain about this, about your role?
Sure. So basically, it's standard managerial role. The reason why we call it engineering manager is because I lead a tech team of a few software engineers who report to me, and I'm in charge of and accountable for their own growth and development. Standard managerial stuff like we all have in multiple corporates. I work on scaling Google Cloud in general and taking it to the next level, hopefully. At least that's what I feel I'm doing. And yeah, part of my work is also helping my team and grow at an individual level as well as at a team level, mentor people in the right way and help them uh, get on a good career path within the
Oh,
organization. Obviously. But yeah.
okay, that's great. So, okay, without making a delay in our today's topic, that software engineering behavior interview. So, would you like to explain about this behavior interviews, like what actually it is, and through this, what are those qualities that basically a recruiter is looking for?
Sure thing. So, see, behavioral interviews, right? It's slightly tricky than a regular coding interview because the coding interview, the template is somewhat similar. You know, the type of questions are
Yes.
finite. Have questions from say arrays and trees and graphs, etc. Or you could be dealing with a system design interview if you're applying for a fair resume. The same, unfortunately, does not apply to a behavioral interview. The questions are very standard. Most of the times, we know what are the types of questions that we will. The response has to change company by company, and that's where it becomes tricky. Well, uh, taking yeah, I would not give the same as I would at Amazon as Flipkart or something else. Primarily because the core culture is different, and I would want to adapt my answers. The way exact way I would adapt my resume is also across different companies by putting the relevant job description, specific keywords. The same thing applies to behavioral. What the recruiters are looking for, and not the recruiters, the interviewers are looking for, is to find a good candidate who is able to resonate as well as demonstrate the company's culture so that once they join, they are a good fit in the organization forward from there.
Okay, that's good. So let's start from your experience. Like when you came to know about this, such kind of round exists. Because most of us used to prepare that coding interviews and online assessment, and most of us tend to forget that such kind of round also exists, which whose name is behavioral interview. Because most of us used to skip this round and all have the mentality चल ठीक है यार कर लेंगे जो भी होगा देख लेंगे. Such kind of a mentality is there. So yeah, but it has also the same importance as much as online assessment and coding interviews. Am I right?
Again, so few differences. Behavioral interviews mostly happen once a candidate clears their coding interviews,
Yeah.
primarily because it's easier to conduct a coding interview. You can always have hacker earth type of tests engines built up wherein a personal interviewer does not have to come and commit their times. So coding interviews are more in the initial rounds of interviews. Depends on where you're applying, by the way. I don't think it's possible for us to skip a behavioral interview because every company at least has one round, be it the name of HR interview or managerial round or actual behavioral interview. For example, in Google, there's explicitly Googliness interview that happens. And in Amazon also, there's a round similar to this. Uh, Correct. So why it's critical is because in case say your coding round is not super good, you're on the borderline, but you're obviously on the good track. Demonstrating good behavioral traits will help you make that cut. Okay, because overall, in the end, when the hiring committee sets or whatever is the equivalent in the different companies, they will look at you as a candidate and they would assess, okay, so this person is, say, above average coder and has the knack for solving problems, so good, and has good behavioral skills, personal skills that can help the team overall build together. So they will go ahead and do it. As and when the more senior you become, behavioral rounds comes even more serious because now it's not just you as an individual, but people will look up to you. And it doesn't even have to be a managerial. Even if you are, say, the tech lead of a particular team, you will be mentoring this group of young engineers in the team. And how you do that matters a lot. People change companies because of how the managers and the leads are. So I would be very cognizant of how I would be hiring my leads and my managers in the team to help set the right direction and culture within the team. And that's where behavioral interviews become super critical.
Okay. So like, did you face such kind of interview round in your journey?
See, every company has conducted at least one round. I have been through at least one to two per company that I've interviewed, and I've interviewed at Apple, Flipkart, Google, few startups, Walmart, and AIG, obviously, because I've worked with those companies.
Okay. So what was your experience like? How did you overcome that obstacles or something? Because it was you able to pass that test, pass that round?
Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't get recruited.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
and
how yeah, how did you overcome this round?
So, see, everything is about practice, right? No matter what you do and wherever you are. We practice for coding interviews by solving problems on CodeChef and Geeks for Geeks and other platforms, right? In terms of behavioral round, I like voicing out my answers well in advance. There are a few questions that we already know. Tell me something about yourself is one question that mostly comes up. A few other standard questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, etc., etc., etc. All that comes up, right? You can kind of understand the theme of the question that you are going through and then appropriately answer those questions in the best interest of you as well as the company. Okay, you should try justifying how you are selling yourself as to be the best possible candidate for this role and appropriately justifying why the interviewer should recruit you and not someone else. Okay, practice definitely helps. You can always find behavioral questions on the internet. That's very readily available. And then if you want, you can even put the company filter. Those things are always available. From there, you can just start practicing. So if not anything, you should always prepare, tell me something about yourself. That's like the most standard question that you get asked.
Yeah.
Sometimes even in a coding interview for the first couple of minutes as we are exchanging pleasantries. So if you know somebody is going to come and ask me this question, why not keep my sales pitch ready? Right.
Okay. So like as you've said, the most basic and the standard question, tell me about yourself. Because like whatever the company is, the first question will be is like how will we introduce yourself to the interviewer, to the recruiter? Because in starting, I used to commit mistakes as well. So, like, can you tell about the perfect approach or like similar to like how should we present or how should we introduce ourselves to the recruiter?
From the perspective of what? Sorry, I lost you in between.
Yeah. So I was just saying, ki, like, how should one represent or introduce himself in the in front of the recruiter? Like that
So
when they ask, yeah,
got it. So it depends upon the role at which you're interviewing for. If you are in college and you are applying for a job, you know you will be mostly hitting, and I'm assuming that you're applying for a technical role, say for a software engineer's role. Okay, or if you're say choosing a designer's path, then you'll have to have your portfolio up and ready and easily talkable. If because I'm a software engineer, I started my career as a software engineer, so I'd stick to that route and try to give some past experiences over here. Very simple things, right? When I interviewed back in 2014 for my first ever company, the answer was pretty useless, right? Because that time I did not have enough maturity and of how to actually handle behavioral questions. I would basically start with telling what are the technical projects that I've done, how I'm very passionate about a particular technology and how I would want to go ahead. The cheat sheet which I used to use was, so if I'm say applying to AIG, which was my first company back then, I would want to talk a little bit more about insurance tech, for example, because I know AIG is an insurance company. However, if say Walmart was my first company, I would want to dive deeper into how concepts on the retail technology will help me go into. So now what you're doing, this difference of adapting this practice is instead of giving a standard answer, which I would assume you have mugged or basically memorized earlier, I now know that you're talking about from core passion. I'm right that I'm very passionate about being in retail. I want to understand how pricing works or how discounting works. Okay, and I've tried to take my stab at it. Or I, in my college days, I tried to set up a profile, a very simple UI which allows people to place items to add to cart. I obviously did not go ahead from add to cart because I did not set up a payment gateway, but till there I completed my project. Okay, so those things will a show your technical expertise that you're competent enough to be able to pull it off. B shows your passion for retail and why you would be a better fit than somebody else who gave a generic answer, and also uh, enable room for questions in your comfort zone. So now, because I'm nudging them that I've done, say, a particular UI project on ordering system for a retail company, you would expect the interviewer, out of curiosity, to ask a follow up on that direction, rather than leaving a generic room and enabling questions from pretty much everywhere. Right. So it helps you reduce the overall focus to a slightly smaller domain.
okay, that's pretty cool. So, would you like to tell about your answer when you answered the firstly this question? Like, tell me about yourself. What was your answer at that time?
Again, depends upon the company. So I'll
Yeah,
give you a couple of instances trying to cover all the domains that I have
yeah.
interacting. So
You can give a demo. Yeah,
yeah, I'll actually try to do two or three smaller versions of it, and I'll not take the names of the companies because I
yeah,
don't
sure.
want to
No
either
issue. Yeah,
or downsell anyone. There's this particular Indian startup that I used to be very passionate about. I'm still am. I'm also one of their customers, and they do a lot of stock recommendations. I've recently, like few years ago, I started investing in the stock market, and I genuinely love their product. So I applied to their company. I did not get a call back initially. Then I chased a few folks, got it again. When I had to tell something about myself, I started with how I started as a stock market investor, investing, and how I realized that the product had a few flaws into it. Okay, so my entire standard was, hey, so tell me something about yourself. The standard, hey, I'm Abhishek. I've done a few things. The reason why I want to be here is because I have been your customer for past 3.5 years, and I have been using a product at least once every month. And every time I place an order, I get a nagging feeling that maybe I can do a lot more to help this product because I know the pain point that a regular customer goes into. So, having been in that expertise domain, I now can see how I can go and add value, say, in improving the buy and sell feature of the company, or by improving the reports that I see to track my holdings or to track my profit and loss segment, right? So if you start giving these type of precise answers, okay, so I'm very tell me something about yourself. Just giving a how I would actually answer this if I was saying an actual interview is, hey, I'm Abhishek. I have roughly 8 years of experience across multiple domains, across insurance and retail and startup entrepreneurial experience. However, if you realize I'm not interviewing at any of these domains, I'm now interviewing into an investment firm. The prime reason for doing this is off late, I've been investing a lot into stock markets and I'm genuinely very passionate about it. I've also been your customer for the past 2 to 3 years, so I can say that I understand some of the customer pain points already, having been your customer. And hence, I see myself adding a lot of value once I am a part of the organization, by both not just solving the technical challenges as a software engineer, but also contributing on how we can overall work together to make the product better and also enable myself to grow within the organization. Okay, so if I do get recruited, I definitely see myself having a long and impactful career haul in the organization and take the product as well as the company to the next level. Period. That's how I'll start. So this is me taking a stab at a good
Okay.
company that I would want to approach.
Okay. I think that would be sufficient for those who want to take idea like how should a answer should be crafted in such a way that it should belong to your vision as well as the company principle. Am I right?
Correct.
You can correct if I'm wrong.
There's
Yeah.
also a very third element, and I do receive a lot of requests for referrals and few other things, right? Whenever I
Yeah.
probe them, ki, hey, why do you want to be at company X? I mostly hear things like I'm very good at coding, or I'm looking for a new job, and this company is great, be it Flipkart or any other company, and I would want to be at a company which offers me such a fast-paced, growing environment. uh, a very standard term that you've seen and heard across multiple domains, right? Now, my question is, if I am the one, again, I'm changing the context slightly. I'm changing it from to be an interview, I'm changing it to be a buy and sell market scenario. If you go in to buy a pen or to buy any product in the market, and the person who is the sales rep there, or say buy a car, buy a fridge, whatever. Okay. You say you go to buy a car and you say, why do I buy it? Particular car. Let's say I own a Honda City. So why did I buy Honda City? It was not because Honda City is a very good car and they have a very big market cap and they're a very evolving company. No, right? I bought it A because I love sedans. I like the look and feel of it. It's very comfortable to drive. Okay. Very recently, I bought another car which was also having similar traits. So that's how you make your decision. Imagine if the sales rep does not pitch you in that way. Okay, sir, it's good. It has good mileage. It has good steering comfort and very low cost maintenance. Instead of saying this, if the sales rep says, sir, Honda is an amazing company, we have such good market cap, we recently had a new CEO that I personally don't care about. I care about the mileage, I care about the driving experience. The same thing applies to behavioral interviews. Once you start justifying why you should be at a company X, tell them what you bring to the company and not what the company brings to you. So, for example, in my answer that I just gave, I was telling them about how I can help take the company forward instead of saying how the company will be beneficial for me. Okay, you can learn a lot at companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, Flipkart. You can learn a lot from startups. Okay, but what you bring to those companies also matters significantly and equivalently as compared to the rest. Does that help?
Okay. Yeah. I think the example that you've given of that Honda City, I think it will simplify all the queries of the engineers, like what are they looking for. Okay, so like there are some common behavioral questions that are commonly asked in most of interviews. Like 8 out of 10 companies used to ask those are common behavior interview questions. So could you please mention those questions and answer what should be their answer, like how the answer should be crafted that way?
So, do you have any particular question in your mind before we start, and I can accordingly take it up from there?
Yeah, yeah. Like there are some common questions like tell me about a time when you have a conflict with your teamwork. I think that's the most popular question, and it is used to ask like to check someone's teamwork capability. Like if someone opinion is different than yours, then what should be your action next procedure? Or what should be the next step? And like tell me about a time when you had to work under pressure and how did you overcome that pressure? Such kind of questions like I faced in an interview. So like based on that, I can made a conclusion like describe a situation we had a conflict with us. So such kind of questions were there.
Got it.
So
Sure.
yeah,
So let's take it one by one. The questions that I heard was one, define a time when you had a conflict with someone in your team, and
yeah,
because you had a different thought, and other person has a different thought, and how do you go ahead with it? The second question which I heard was how do you work under pressure? Okay, so
Okay,
let's
sure.
focus on these two right now, and we can accordingly take forward more questions as and when time permits. Sure. So, going by the time of how do you handle different opinions across the team and how do you resolve conflicts? So Okay, so it depends, right? It depends on who the person is. If the person that I'm talking to is a peer of mine and we both are at the same level, then I can have a much more honest and simple conversation without being too worried about the org layers and the hierarchy. However, if it's with someone who is like two levels above me or three levels above me, VP or a need my verbiage accordingly to justify why I'm backing up a concept X over concept Y. Nonetheless, from my experience, what has worked is disconnecting from my current scope of work a little bit, trying to understand what the person B is trying to tell me, what is their rationale for thinking it. Normally, I prefer pulling them up in a meeting room, discussing and hearing out their own ideas of why they think their idea is better than mine and what are the pros and cons. I prefer listing it down on a whiteboard if we are in the same room or over a Google document, if we are on Google Meet and talking around it, so that we both get to understand where we stand. That being said, there is no guarantee that this approach will help me out to reach a common consensus. We may have to schedule follow ups, bring in few more people to help us understand their fresh perspective and how it matters. But placing myself in their shoes and trying to understand what they are trying to communicate and how the design is, doing a pro and con analysis has almost every time helped me resolve the conflict. And when I say resolve a conflict, it doesn't mean that I always win. It also sometimes that they have a better idea and I have to accept it and help them out. Nonetheless, the prime and the utmost important part that I pay attention to every conflict is that once we agree upon a solution, doesn't matter whose it is, or if it is a mix of both, we agree and commit to it instead of trying to do something very different, because it's important to learn how to commit and take it up even when you do not agree to it. Okay, so it's important because that's how the direction of the project will also accordingly go ahead with.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Uh, okay, so like in the behavior interviews, what should be what's your point of view? That is there the balance between the individualistic qualities as well as the working as a team abilities? Because at the end of the day, they are looking for your individual qualities. That like I'm the super, I have that ability, that I'm the smart, but they are checking for the team quality as well. That you are able to work in team or not. So, what should be your like approach? Like, what's your point of view to maintain this balance between these two parameters?
The reason why I'm smiling is actually I've seen so many people not get it right, because it's a very thin line, right? Of where do you balance
Yeah,
you versus the team skills, and people end up going on the extreme, or either they're completely trying to show their team side or completely trying to show their individual
the
side.
individual.
And going on the extremes is never a good idea, because in the end it's you who's being recruited and not your team overall who's being recruited. So it matters that you sell yourself and not your team. Two things which is important: be humble, don't disrespect anyone in your team. Oftentimes I've noticed people openly criticizing somebody in their team that idea X failed because the product manager was useless or didn't know what they were doing, or they were too micromanagey and I was not very happy with how it is, etc., etc. So most important thing, no matter how good or bad your product was, do not criticize your team members. It's never a good trait. You can justify the failure without putting the blame on an individual. Okay, sell yourself. Okay, this is what how the way I was trying to explain. Sorry, just give me a minute, please.
Yeah,
So just the way I was explaining, right, how it's important to show what value you are bringing to the company, not the value that the company will be providing to you. You also need to explain how you were contributing to your team before this. Okay, so if you're say talking about any product, you need to tell how you added value as a team in that overall team effort. Okay, so doesn't matter if it is tell me about a time when you worked under pressure, or if it's about resolving conflicts. Even when you're working under pressure, you do reach out to individuals in your team to seek help and also to get this. Or sometimes they maybe the entire team has taken off, you're genuinely screwed on that particular day, and that's also a pretty pressure scenario. Compliment your teammates, call out your necessary activities that you did to get us out of that pressure scenario or help the team move in the right direction, and highlight your personal as well as technical competencies while doing so. Okay, so these three bullet points should definitely help you out whenever you are trying to balance in between the team and the individual. But mostly answer in the I term and not the we term, the individual term what versus the team term. Okay.
Okay, so there should be a fine balance between these two parameters, like individual and that team working capability as well.
Whenever you're calling it a team win, you have to explain what you contributed to the team.
Okay, okay, that's fine. So, like, is there any some resources or some platform to practice such behavior interview questions? Because these are some critical points that you can get from your senior or some industry personality. But if someone is not in that contact or in some touch, so what should be his or her approach to tackle such questions or to prepare for such rounds?
So I'm not very well versed with a lot of the resources, but there's this one book. Let me just very quickly verify that it exists there. But I think there's this book called as Cracking the PM Interview, which is written by
Okay.
Gail Blackman McDowell, which I personally feel is a really good book.
Yeah, I've
Uh,
also heard about this. Yeah.
has a section called as behavioral questions. Just trying to find the book as we talk, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it has a behavioral inter questions section. So one second. Oh, company research. Oh, yes, it definitely has behavioral questions. So there's chapter 12 of Cracking the PM Interview, which talks
Oh,
about behavioral questions, and it also helps you understand questions like define yourself, the questions like tell me something about yourself, why do you want to work here, why should we hire you, why are you
yeah.
doing your current job, why do you like, what do you like to do in your spare time, etc., etc. So most of the standard questions, as I was telling you, majority of the questions in a behavioral interview is standard. What matters is how do you sell yourself while answering the same questions throughout the interview session. So I think that's a really good read. I've been through that book. That's a genuinely a very good read to go through.
Okay. So can you please drop that book link in the chat box so that I can share with the audience?
Just one second.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Yes, it's done. Just sent it across.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
There might be other
Oh,
good resources also. So I'm not advocating everybody buying this book. I have it on my Kindle. But even if you don't want to buy this, just type Google in, on Google any standard behavioral interview questions. Just the way I was
okay.
reading these questions, it's a fairly standard set of questions. But you need to have your stories right. The most important part about a behavioral interview is to keep your stories right. Everything should have an example from the previous work experience if you have any. If you're a college student, then appropriately how you have done any project or any activity in the college in those 4 to 5 years of your duration there. But
Yeah.
examples should be ready, and you should have roughly 5 examples from different sections. It doesn't look good if you're always falling back to the exact same project for every answer. Makes me wonder, have you not done anything else apart from that project, and if you are genuinely a good fit?
Okay. 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 Let's come to the most honest point. Like there are majority of the people who haven't worked as a team member. Okay. They haven't joined any program or some or project that they work under any team. So what should be their answer? Because they have no experience that what is actually team culture, like how should we proceed with the team members. So uh, is there any like suggestion or tip you want to give to them, those
What
who
do you
haven't
mean by people who have not worked as a team?
yeah.
No, I'm just trying to understand. Are you talking about freelancers, or are you talking about people who are
No,
working
no.
remotely?
There are lots of engineers. There are lots of engineers. There are lots of students who didn't be like they haven't joined any project or they don't. They are not the part of any team. Okay, they don't have any experience about what is the team, what is the team culture, and how should we proceed in a team where different people are of different opinions are working as a single under the single roof. So, like, what should be their approach? Like, any tip or any suggestion you want to deliver to those who are
Sure.
missing this part?
Sure. Actually, very interesting question. This is something I've not heard before. Uh, Two things that we can do. One is be honest. Tell it upfront that you have worked in a environment setting wherein you have worked mostly as an individual contributor, not as a big team. You did not have people working in parallel with you. And then from there, you can start narrating how you have, if you have worked on any projects, how you were able to single-handedly deliver a particular project. If you are say have not been assigned a project and you're on bench right now waiting for this, which happens a lot in a few companies, you can also justify what you did in your free time. How did you ensure that you were on the constructive path of learning, and how you are uh, pushing yourself to be one of the best in whatever you're trying to do by adding value in appropriate resources. So doing these two things will definitely help. You can also add in a few examples from your past. Doesn't have to be technical examples, but few examples wherein you went ahead and supported an individual when and how they needed help, and appropriately take it forward. For example, if I don't have a managerial team with me, I can always fall back to this YouTube video, for example, to tell how I was able to mentor a group of people by just sharing my past experiences and helping them out there in the right direction. So feel free to call it out and showcase your skills overall. And it's important to be honest. Please don't try to fake examples by borrowing resources from internet, because if you do follow up questions on top of it, it's easy to detect when we are being lied to. So better to be honest and tell it upfront that your nature of work is slightly different. And that's primarily the reason why you want to apply to that company, because you want to work as a team and help the team as well as receive a few valid constructive criticism points from them.
Okay, so like conclusion of your statement is that it's better to stick with our childhood line that honesty is the best policy.
To a certain extent, yes.
Okay, okay.
Don't
So
be
I
super.
think
So don't tell examples which will hurt you overall. It has to be ethical. It has to be
okay.
in lines with the
It's
company's vision and
it
principle.
seems to be realistic that you are, yes, you are telling those things so that you have practically experienced those things, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay,
So, for example,
okay,
if you're applying to a company which has frugality as a it's one of its core principles, don't go showing how you're spending money around throughout, because it directly contradicts with the company culture, or vice versa. Right? If you are applying to a company which is very employee friendly, don't say how you are able to micromanage your team, for example, and take it forward, because there's there. So understanding the company, doing proper company research, and being honest in your answers will definitely help you out.
okay. So okay, that's very great. Okay, so like we are about to wrap this session. We already have 30 minutes. So at the end of the session, or any one tip or any one suggestion you want to deliver that those who are watching or those who will be watching in future.
Practice and get your stories right. It does
Okay.
not help to try and hunt for stories as and when the interviewer asks them questions, because you're missing your shot of throwing the best possible pitch out there. We know most of the types of questions that will be asked in a behavioral interview. Stick to them. Keep few of your stories right. The types of stories that you can talk about is how you contributed as an individual, how you contributed as a team, how you worked under a pressure scenario, how did you resolve conflicts, etc., etc. But have examples, preferably from different times in your lifespan, and stick to it. If you are an experienced professional, prefer falling back to your examples from the past couple of years instead of trying to find an example from 10 years before the time frame. But the most recent the example, the more impactful it is. That's all.
Okay. That's great. I think the experiences, the tips, the suggestion that you have delivered to our audiences, it would definitely help. It will definitely help them in their journey, and those who will be watching in future will help definitely them also. Okay, so that's all. That's all for today's session. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Abhishek. Thank you for sharing your valuable experiences and the tips that you have shared are definitely going to grow as much as the engineers can. They learn from your stories or the tips that you have shared here. Okay. Okay. So thank you. Thank you for joining.
Good evening. Bye bye.